The snow came early that year, a silent legion rolling over the neck, soft shoeing the reed beds and drowning the last green of the late harvest beneath its pale weight. At Moat Caelin's ruined towers, the sentries watched white sheets drift across the causeway and whispered ghost stories about the kings in the north, who had stood here once, gray-cloaked and unbent. Far to the south, war still raged, lances breaking like lightning across the green fork, hearths gutted in the riverlands, crows glutting themselves on villages that would never send seed north again. Yet inside the temporary halls of Robb Stark's camp, there was a hush almost as deep as the snow outside, a breath drawn and held too long. Robb could feel that breath in every man he passed. When he emerged from his pavilion at dawn, gray wind at his side, he tasted it on the wind. An expectancy seasoned with fear, like the moment before a hunting hound is loosed. He wondered how many of his bannermen sensed the same tension that haunted him, the unspoken truth that each bold stride southward pulled the north itself further from any hearth to return to. Still, he wore the king's mantle lightly, or tried to, his shoulders squared beneath wolf-trimmed fur, his youth etched stark against the iron lines worry had sketched on his brow. Today he had summoned only a handful of sworn men, and not for talk of siege ladders or grain tithes, or the bitter news that Sir Brynden sent from Riverrun. Instead, he would ride north, and none but those sworn by blood or love would know. Even Catelyn did not. His mother had been closeted for hours with the silent sister's wagon, praying over bones that once might have been her lord husband's. If she discovered he meant to slip away, fear would drive her tongue quicker than any raven. But Robb could not risk saying the words aloud until he faced the one man whose voice had haunted every hearthfire memory he carried from Winterfell. Dawn.ie. The name stirred something older than crown or kingdom. In the quiet reaches of night, when courtiers' compliments faded and maesters' parchments blurred into the gloom, Robb sometimes saw his brother as he had been, boots caked in stable straw, eyes afire with tales of old Nan's others, head thrown back in a laugh no lordling's manners could tame. Winterfell's halls echoed with that laughter still, at least in dream. Wakeful and alone, Robb would reach for the memory like a sword missing from its rack, searching for the surety it once afforded him. But Jon Snow was no longer in Winterfell's shadow. Word from the wall said the bastard of Eddard Stark had ridden beyond the frozen gate, part of some ranging lost amidst the haunted forest. Other letters contradicted, claiming Jon now sat Lord Commander in the old bear's stead, while wildlings hammered the doors. Ravens were as fickle as summer's snow, yet every scrap of ink carried one thread. Jon lived, and the wall had not yet fallen. The letter that spurred Robb's secret ride arrived 3 nights past. It was not borne by any raven he knew, but by a hooded girl whose silence unsettled the camp guards enough that they brought her straight to Grey Wind's snarl and the king's eyes. She offered only a parchment sealed with cracked black wax, bearing a device no northerner recognized. A broken trident circled by 3 small stars. The sigil meant nothing to Robb, but the words inside stripped the breath from his lungs. Brother, if blood counts, meet me where we learn to shoot. Ride alone, or ride with ghosts. Trust none but the wind. The wall is not the only thing in peril. We have father's honor and mother's dream between us, and a secret older than both. Come to Queen's Crown by first moon of winter. There had been no signature, yet the tilt of the letters, sharp-angled, earnest, a hint of impatience pressing at each curve, was Joan's hand as plainly as if his bastard name were scrawled in bold at the bottom. Robb had stared until the ink blurred, until Grey Wind pressed a cold nose beneath his shaking hand. A secret older than both. Father's honor? The riddles stung, but under them pulsed something fierce that no cipher could hide. Need, as raw and stark as the dawn over the shivering sea. Robb summoned trusted shadows. Lord Grachan, whose booming oath might shake tents loose yet, never ring beyond the men he named kin. Mage Mormont, whose loyalty stood as granite. Jorah's cousin Jorlin of Oldcastle, his father's friend. They argued caution, of course. Kings did not ride unguarded on roads where sellswords sniffed for gold. But each, in the end, bent knee to Robb's silence, reading in his eyes that this was no whim of a lonely boy longing for hearth. A king might risk his life for realm, a brother for love. Robb Stark bore both burdens at once. At dusk on the third day, hours before the camp would break toward the twins for the ill-starred wedding with Frey, Robb slipped from command, leaving Lord Edmure the false comfort of banners flapping still behind him. With grey wind ahead and grey wind's shadow behind, he crossed the causeway, flanked by 8 riders who could pass as common outriders. The snow deepened, muffling each hoof like a priest's benediction. Far above them, daylight withered behind leaden clouds. Yet Robb felt something like warmth blooming in his chest, the nearer he drew to Queenscrown. Queenscrown was no castle fit for a king, only a lopsided tower of old stone perched upon an islet where 3 small lakes converged. In Robb's boyhood, it had served as hunting lodge, a place where he and Jon honed bowcraft under the patient eye of Sir Roderick, while Bran and Rickon rolled in the hay. The tower walls were crumbling even then, ivy clawing at lich-spotted stones, but they had loved it for its solitude. Here no septa chided, no tutors droned, only the wind quivering in arrow shafts, laughter, skipping across water. Ghost stories of water wights never deterred them. Boys were braver than men in some ways. When the tower's crooked crown rose from white-tipped reeds, Robb felt grey wind's hackles stand. A lone torch flickered behind a high arrow slit, red against the blue dusk, a heartbeat in stone. The riders hesitated, but Robb pressed on alone, commanding the rest to wait among the birch fringe. He crossed the rickety plank bridge, its slats groaning beneath warhorse weight, climbed crumbling steps 2 at a time, and paused at the splintered oaken door. No challenger waited, no ambush barbed the stillness. Only the torchlight spilling down a narrow stair called him upward, and Robb answered. Past moss-green rubble, up 1 flight, 2, into a hall roofed by cracked beams through which snow sifted like flour. There a shape stood by the window slit, black cloak stirring, hair as dark as the pain of night beyond. He did not turn at Robb's tread. He stared outward, as though counting stars that had not appeared. Robb halted 3 paces away. On? The man's shoulders tensed. When he faced Robb, torchlight touched a face leaner than Robb remembered, wind-burnt older by years, though seasons had scarcely turned. Yet the eyes were the same storm gray, the mouth cut by humor he had long denied himself. He said nothing. Instead he knelt, one knee ringing softly on stone, and bowed his head. Rise, Robb whispered, voice cracking more than the floor beneath them. Rise, brother. Jon climbed to his feet, and for a moment they stood, 2 shapes half-lit, shadows of themselves 20 years hence, mirrored by time's cruelty. Then they embraced without words, the kind of embrace boys share when they meet at dawn before a journey and know nothing will ever be as simple. Grey wind edged into the hall, sniffed Jon, whined, and permitted him a tentative stroke on the ruff. The wolf's acceptance did what speech could not. They laughed, sudden and breathless, as though the very walls exhaled. When laughter faded, Jon gestured to a stone bench. On it lay a roll of sheepskin, a wineskin, a leather pouch heavy with coins. Supplies, he said. We'll need them. Robb frowned. For what road? I ride back at dawn. There is a wedding to attend. Jon's mouth twisted. A Frey wedding? The twins set traps in dance halls, Robb. I have sworn, Jon. My uncle is to wed. And you are king, Jon finished softly. Your crown clangs louder than chains. Robb stared long at the younger man's face. Speak plain. You wrote of secrets older than both of us. Jon loosened the black clasp at his throat, letting his cloak fall. Beneath, a tunic of plain wool stretched over lean muscle, but at the throat gleamed something no snow had ever worn. A disc of beaten bronze, carved with a 3-headed dragon, entwined around a deer wolf's head. The sigil stunned Robb to silence. It was crude, rough work by some campsmith, yet the symbolism struck like thunder. Jon touched the disc. I forge no claim with this metal. It is reminder, nothing more, not to forget what I am and what I was raised. He lifted gray eyes to Robb's. I am my father's son, but I was never his bastard. Confusion rippled. Disbelief followed hard upon. What riddles? Not Eddard Stark. Joan's voice did not break, yet each word seemed borne on blades. Rhaegar. Silence flooded the tower, heavier than any snowpack. Outside, wind keened through arrow slits, carrying the reedy whistle of the lakes. Robb tasted iron at his tongue's edge and realized he had bitten himself. Impossible, he managed. Jon unrolled the sheepskin. Ink glimmered black-brown. A letter, set down by Lord Eddard's own hand the night before he marched south to face Robert at the Trident. Not all secrets die with Lords, Robb. The great Jon's grandfather hid this for Ned at Queen's Crown, buried beneath the hearth because a raven could be intercepted, and men tortured. Lady Maeve's mother swore to guard it until the day the rightful kin reclaimed it. He paused. I found it days ago, or rather it found me. Robb's world tilted. He reached for the parchment with numb fingers. The script was unmistakable. His father's elegant strokes, firm even as doom closed around him. There were names. Lyanna, repeated like a prayer. There were dates, a marriage in secret. There was a child birthed in a bed of blood and fever, a promise on a dying sister's lips. And there was the dragon's name, Aegon Targaryen, last hope of a fallen house. Heat rushed Robb's cheeks. He saw his father kneeling before some dying girl, sword in one hand, tears in the other, swearing silence for sake of realm, and for the life of the boy he would call son. He saw every time he had mocked Jon for the shadow on his name, every cheer he received from men who would never cheer a bastard, and shame burned hotter than the brazier at his back. Jon took the letter gently from his fingers. I misliked secrets once. They set me apart, made me doubt every kindness. I thought if father had only named my mother, I might walk straighter. Now I grasp the weight he bore. He looked out the window. Robert would have butchered me, as he butchered babes in King's Landing. The realm heaved a sigh when the dragons died, but the snowbank covered corpses of children. Now. Robb closed eyes tight. I would have followed father to any depth had I known. We all would. Jon's laugh was sand and wind. Would you? Lord Rickard's voice still echoes in northern halls, honor before all. And yet father hid a truth that would have upended Robert's throne and fractured the north besides. Secrets save and secrets ruin. Which will ours be? Robb opened his mouth, closed it, letting the question settle in marrow. Why summon me? Because war eats kings faster than famine. Jon leaned forward, voice low. If you ride to that Frey wedding, you ride into jaws you cannot see. Spies flit between every ale cask, carrying whispered songs of debts owed Lannisters. Roose Bolton's eyes glint like knives left in snow. The Riverlords bleed, and the Freys hoard bandages. You trust them, yet they trust only tally sticks. Robb's breath fogged. How know you such things from the wall? I do not stand at the wall. Jon flexed his scarred fingers. I go where the wildlings go. Slip through camps where sellswords bragged to campfires. The old bear taught me the worth of an ear before he fell. And I have made use of both. He glanced at the letter again. Ice is not the only thing cracking, Robb. King's Landing teeters, dragons stir overseas, true dragons, unhatched eggs quickening in flame. If the north falls now, you hand the south a gift of ruin, and I lose the only brother I have left. Robb felt tears prick behind eyes that had shed none since he knelt by his father's headless form. He swallowed them, standing. Then what pact do you propose? You are Rhaegar's son, yet you call yourself brother still. Jon rose likewise. I propose we make that truth our strength, not our doom. Stark and Targaryen once joined when Torrhen knelt, and dragons spared the north. Let them join again, this time in shadows, until we choose daylight. He drew a small dagger from his belt, Valyrian steel, rippling dark blue and deepest red, the wolf's head pommel sparkling with garnets. Father left this for me in Mormont's keeping, to be delivered if ever the realm learned what he dared not say. Its name is Whisperfang, a blade for secrets. He offered it, hilt first. Cut my palm, Robb, and I shall cut yours. Blood for blood, ice with fire. Gray wind wafted, ears twitching. Robb stared at the dark metal, seeing there the reflection of a boy he once was, and the man he could become. If I take this road, he said, there is no stepping back. I break vows pledged to lords who have given sons to my banners. You do not break them, Jon murmured. You strengthen them. The North is more than swords. It is story, memory, oath. What king lets his people march to butchery while truth lies buried at his feet? Then minds. Robb reached. The hilt was cold yet living, pulse thrumming as though the steel itself breathed. He drew a swift line across his palm, crimson welled, hot against winter's chill. Jon opened his own hand to the cut. When their blood mingled, Robb felt a tremor run the length of his spine, a stirring like the first howl of a newborn wolf in deep forest. Something ancient woke between them. By winter's howl and dragon's fire, Jon intoned, voice steady, we bind our fates in secrecy until realm or life demand the roar of revelation. Robb repeated the words, the taste of blood metallic on his tongue. Their clasp lingered, palms slick. Somewhere a raven croaked, and snow hissed through broken slats. Only then did Robb notice another parchment on the bench, this sealed with red wax, stamped by a crowned stag, trampled beneath a dragon's talon. Jon followed his gaze. For Stannis, he will claim kingship until the day winter drowns the sun. But even the proud bend when proof stands before them. He dipped a finger in their shared blood, pressed it atop the seal. Your handprint joins mine. Stark and Targaryen speak together. Robb's mind raced. Stannis might believe bastardry no more than Robb had. Yet if Maester Aemon had vouched for dragon blood, and Aemon's name held weight even south of the neck, perhaps. And with the Red Woman's flames whispering prophecies, who could say what fires would answer new fuel? Dawn approaches. Jon bound his cut with cloth. Your men will grow restless. Tell them naught. Ride to the twins if you must but steer clear of the hall when the musicians strike reins of Castamere. And Robb frowned. You speak as if you have walked those halls. I have walked dreams redder than any wedding. Jon's eyes darkened. Trust me, brother. Robb pocketed Whisperfang, the weight unfamiliar yet right. And you? Will you ride south with me? Not yet. I must return north, gather proof, rouse old ghosts. Maid Mormont knows more than she dare speak. Lord Reed guards waters deeper than Winterfell's wells. When the pack is ready, I will come. He clasped Robb's shoulder. Live till then. Robb managed a tired smile. You always were the careful one. And you the bold. Jon's grin flickered, brief as candlelight. Bolder still, if you spurn Frey stew. They parted at the tower door, neither voicing the fear that this meeting might be their last. Robb mounted, feeling the burn in his palm each time reins tugged. As the horses turned south, he glanced back once. The torch at the arrow slit extinguished, yet in its place glowed a softer ember. Hope frail as frost-edged dawnlight. Settling over Queenscrown, Robb rejoined his vanguard by sunrise. They found him changed. The lines of worry remained, but steel underlaid them now. A quiet resolve that stilled questions before they formed. He did not share the letter, nor the blade. Yet when they camped that night, he called Mage Mormont to his tent. Whatever words passed between the king and the she-bear were hushed, but watchers saw her leave pale-faced, murmuring a prayer to nameless gods. On they rode toward the twins, snow swirling behind like unborn ghosts. But the storm within Robb's breast burned hotter than any hearth. Every stride south was marked in twin beats. Wolf and dragon, ice and fire. Two hearts where one once broke alone. And somewhere northward, beyond the weir-netted lakes and the ghost-high pines, Jon Snow watched the king's banner dwindle against a slate horizon. Beneath his cloak, he carried the brighter banner still, a promise sealed in blood, waiting for the world to remember what it had forgotten. He turned Ghost's muzzle toward the wall and spurred into gathering snow, whispering words that steamed in the cold. "Hold, brother. I will not let the wolf howl alone. Beno. I'll. Ka. Kanti." The snowstorm broke at dusk on the 5th day of their ride, when the winds swinging down from the mountains of the moon blew themselves ragged against the low Riverlands hills and scattered their burden like torn parchment across the marshy flats. In its wake came a hush too profound for a war road. No distant hammer of forges, no clatter of columns tramping behind, only the melancholy drip of thawing ice from birch branches and the soft hiss of shallow waters, drawing breath beneath skin-thin crusts. Robb Stark drew rein on a rise tufted with pale grass and looked back north along the causeway. Gray wind padded beside his horse, his coat ghost bright against the bruised horizon, ears flicking as though catching murmurs Robb could not. 20 yards behind, Lord Mage Mormont sat stock still in her saddle, the great purple cloak of Bear Island gathered round her like tide rack. The other 6 riders fanned out in wary semicircle. Galbart Glover with frost rimming his beard, Sir Wendell Manderley humming under his breath to steady jittery nerves, Jorlin Oldcastle's lean shoulders bent over the reins like a hawk stooping. It was Jorlin who broke the stillness. "Your Grace, dusk closes. Best we reach the estates Lord Frey granted for billeting ere full dark." Robb let his breath drift before answering. "Ay. Yet I would not quarter my men in houses whose hearths we have not warmed first with courtesy." Glover spat snow from his mustache. Courtesy is scarce coin along the Green Fork these days. The Black Twins hoard courtesy in vaults deeper than Old Stone's crypts. Meg's dark eyes flicked to Robb. As they hoard offenses too, each insult answered thrice with slight. Walder's accounting is long, and he tallies in wolves. Robb remembered the letter born on swan-white parchment, the seals of Twin Towers glinting blue. His bridge for your bride. He had not been free then to scorn such terms. Necessity is the whetstone of compromise. Yet even necessity could not wipe away the salt taste of oaths weighed like turnips on a merchant's scale. Now his bride was pledged elsewhere, his uncle foisted into the bargain, and Robb found himself riding back toward a debt grown stranger with each mile. And deeper still lay another debt, one paid in secrecy and blood, stitched across his palm beneath woolen glove. "Courtesy costs us little," Robb said at last, "and buys a measure of Walder's curiosity. Tonight we share salt and bread at Old Stone's. Dawn sees us across the bridge. I will not have my men scattered in river villages while I break bread beneath stone wolves." He tightened reins. "Strike west. We reach Old Stone's by moonrise." The column wheeled. As they set off, Robb fell in beside Mage. Snowmelt dripped from her bare-tooth helm. "Lady Meg," he murmured, "what you learned in that tower? Does it sit heavy?" Her jaw worked. "Heavy as driftwood soaked in storm. Yet driftwood floats, your grace." "Then let us keep it afloat a while longer. If I fall at Frey's door, Bear Island must carry the truth until time ripens. See it done." "And now?" Mage nodded once, the motion short as an axe blow. They rode on in silence, each wrapped in thoughts colder than the night air. South and east of the riders, beyond the whispering rushes of the Green Fork, twin bastions of ill omen rose from river mists. The twins. 2 squat keeps of gray stone linked by covered bridge, their windows burning with hearth fires, their walls crawling with armed men like lice on a beggar's coat. Under those towers, Walder Frey sat in his high-backed chair by a brazier of hickory coals, parchment crackling between brittle fingers. His back ached, his knees pricked with gathering gout. Yet his old wolf's smile curved thin as a paring blade when he set the message aside. "A Stark near-blooded is ever proud," he rasped to the hall at large. "Yet pride leads even wolves to baited traps, if the bait smells of debt forgiven." Around him sons and grandsons, daughters and bastards, scuttled like roaches beneath kitchen light. Sir Ryman dabbed wine from drooping lip. Stevron leaned close, the eldest son's breath rattling like dry leaves. Walder's many Walder grandchildren whispered among themselves, their voices weaving a susurrus of greed and fear. Near the dais stood Roose Bolton, a pale island amid clamor, dry lips poised in something almost a smile. Walder beckoned a liege lord close. Word from my riders says Stark's host is smaller than when last it marched. River lords peeled off to salvage farms burned by his grace the lion. Stark rides with a pup's tail, not a pack. Roozy's light blue eyes flickered. Size matters little, if the head yet bears teeth, Lord Walder. We need make certain those teeth cannot find throats tonight. Walder's wheeze might have been a laugh. Your throat least of all, I wager. He slapped parchment with liver-spotted hand. Ed Muir walks into my noose at dawn. The young wolf by dusk, when rope jerks tight, I expect little mess. Boltons are tidy men, yes? Roose inclined his head. Tidy enough to mop with Frey banners, should they grow stained. The Lord of the Crossing cackled until he coughed, thumping his chest. Beyond those walls, geese fattened for feast. Fiddlers rehearsed even now the rains of Castamere. The snows might melt come spring, yet memory of butchers' work lingered longer than frost. Walder hoped it lingered forever. Jon Snow, long miles northward, did not hear the conspirators' fiddle strings. Instead, he walked the silent halls of a fortress with no name, stone drowned beneath river reeds, walls that shifted with tides like a turtle's shell. Greywater Watch they called it, though no maester's map fixed it. Here out of bog mists rose towers clothed in thick mats of moss, rope bridges hung with dripping vines, halls where frog-speared hides cured above smokeless fires. Ghost padded over boardwalks slick with algae, breath curling white as willow wisps. Jon followed through a moonless night, alive with insect hum and distant frog chorus. At a low doorway he ducked inside to find Howland Reed seated cross-legged on a woven rush mat, a wax candle guttering between them. The Crannog Lord's hair was thin and silvery, his eyes bright as whetstone. On the walls hung relics, a shard of Myrish glass, a child's leather glove, the broken head of a tourney spear, souvenirs from a life lived more in story than court. Howland spoke first. I dreamt of your coming. The reed mats whispered that the dragon's seed had sprouted in winter soil. Jon knelt opposite. Then the reeds speak truer than ravens. I bring a secret once watered by your tears. Howland's gaze flicked to the leather satchel at Jon's belt. Ned's letter? His and Lyanna's. Jon withdrew the worn sheepskin, lay it upon the mat. You were there in the Tower of Joy. You know the truth of those last breaths. Then I said. Howland's slender fingers traced the folded corners. I hid the tower stones in my heart all these years lest they crumble into rumor. Yet stone is heavy. I am tired. Then lay the burden down, Jon urged. Help me bear it. They talked until candle died, the darkness filling with memories. Of a blue flower wilting in bloody sheets, of a young man's promise cut deeper than any sword, of a realm forged on a lie. When dawn breech white seeped through reed blinds, Howland spoke the words Jon yearned to hear. I will rise with you, Dragon Wolf. Reed boats will carry your message through every hidden channel of the neck. The North remembers, and some secrets are seeds waiting for spring. Menmishau. Jon bowed his head. At his hip Whisperfang slept in black scabbard. It would drink more blood before truth bloomed. Yet for this heartbeat, blade rested. Duty awaited. Beyond these boglands, giants stirred in mountains of moonhood. Wildlings hammered frozen gates, and Bolton's leeches crawled toward feast. But within Jon the fire burned steady, pact of ice and flame, sealed in brothers' blood. Old stones lay uncovered by the last sliver of moon when Robb and his small retinue rode through ivy-sheathed arches. Once, in days remembered only by crumbling statues, Strong Bell was the just had raised a marbled seat here for his black-haired maiden of the trident. War, neglect, and time had gnawed the palace to ruin. Only a single hall still stood roofed, its windows empty sockets, its flagstone floor cracked by roots where trees clawed skyward through mortar. Wendell Manderley lit torches in wall sconces, their flare revealing faded frescoes, wolves chasing stags beneath stars, dragons coiling round crowned swords, a maiden's face half lost to pigments peeled by damp. Robb walked the hall's length, listening to echoes smoke in vaulting shadows. This place felt closer to a crypt than to Frey hospitality, yet it bore a piece he had missed since Winterfell burned. The hush of dust, undisturbed, ancient stones that judged no living man. Mage approached carrying a small iron chest she had fetched from her saddlebags. "For you," she said, voice low. "My mother's mother tended it since the year of the false spring." Robb set the chest on a cracked plinth and snapped its rusted clasp. Inside lay layers of oiled linen. When he unfolded them, a helm emerged, wrought of black steel chased with silver runes. The faceplate was a snarling direwolf, eyes cut to mirrors of gloom. Beneath the helm rested a circlet, a slim band of dark iron set with 3 red stones. Robb's breath caught. "What is this?" "The crown of Torrhen Stark," Meg answered. "The king who knelt, yet kept the North sovereign in all but name. When Aegon's sons took southern crowns, Torrhen forged this of weirwood nails and black ice from the wall's foot. It was lost when Queen Alice carried it to the neck as dowry for her river prince. My line hid it when the dragons fell, fearing Lannister lion might seize it as prize." "Nendrim Sawati." Robb lifted the circlet. It felt heavier than gold, cold as shade. The red gems glowed black-heart crimson in torchlight, red as the blood he had mingled with Jones. "Why now?" "Because our true king may need more than bronze trinkets when winter trumpets." Meg's gaze drilled into him. "Yet know this crown bears more hazard than honor. Some will cheer a king old as sin, others will carve his head to claim it." Robb traced the runes, unsure whether to feel humbled or afraid. The iron smelled faintly of smoke and pine resin, as though it still remembered Torrhen's campfires along the Trident. He set crown and helm carefully back in chest. "We keep them hidden a while longer. Honor must wait for hour of need." Mage nodded. "When that hour comes, Bear Island stands with you. The she-bears have sharpened claws." Robb managed a weary smile. "Let us hope claws slash treachery before treachery slays trust." He bid his companions rest. Gray wind curled near the hearth pit where Wendell coaxed damp logs to flame. Galbart Glover took first watch atop shattered stairs that once climbed to a roof now open to stars. Robb lay on pallet beside the fire, yet sleep tarried. He stared into embers, visioning the path ahead. The twins within 2 days' ride, mother's fretful eyes, Edmure's wedding songs. But also he saw Jon striding through snows with dragons curling ghost-like about his shoulders, their wings forging roads of flame across midnight. He pressed his palm beneath blanket. The thin scab ached, whispering promises fire and iron. Somewhere, in Father's godswood beyond death, the old gods listened. Robb prayed they heeded wiser than men. At the edge of dawn, Catelyn Stark stepped from a covered wagon outside the twins and drew her cloak tight. The morning tasted of river mist and stale hay, and her bones ached as though her years had doubled on the road. Yet her thoughts weighed heavier than any bodily pain. Thoughts of Sansa and Arya lost, of her father's river laid waste, of Robb riding north to parley with Freys. She saw men stringing banners of trout and direwolf beside pale blue crossing towers. Too bright, she thought. Colors that defy grief invite blood to paint them deeper. Behind her, Edmure Tully dismounted, wearing embroidered doublet of river-run red and blue, his face flushed. "Sister, you appear wan. We should have sent for a litter." "I am well enough," she lied. "Save concern that Walder Frey will weigh our courtesy as he weighs coin." Edmure adjusted sleeves. "I am to wed his Roslyn, not barter livestock. A bride is bride wherever vows are spoken." Catelyn did not reply. She remembered Roslyn Frey from childhood visits, quiet, red-eyed, overshadowed by louder sisters. She bore no grudge toward the girl, yet Walder's daughters were as game pieces to him, moved where advantage dictated. In this game, Edmure played the opposing field, and Catelyn feared the match rigged before first dice roll. Courtiers in Frey livery escorted them across the covered bridge. Above the archway, torches guttered in iron braziers, flecks of ash swirling on still air. Catelyn's pulse quickened at the sight of crossbowmen lining parapets, too many for mere ceremony, their quarrels poised downward. She glanced at Edmure, saw he noticed nothing. Humming some wedding lay. Inside, torchlit corridors smelled of damp wool and onion stew. Servants bowed low. One pressed wine cup into Catelyn's cold hands. She drank only a sip, tasted bitterness beyond tannin. Perhaps only her mood, perhaps something else. She set the cup aside. Lord Walder received them in the great hall. He looked older than ever. Skin papery, hair white fuzz, eyes sharp as broken glass. He greeted Edmure with false joviality, pinched cheeks like a fond grandsire. To Catelyn, he offered a skeletal hand. "Lady Stark, Tully, River Lady," he croaked, chuckling at his own jest. "Titles flock to you like crows, my dear. Soon you may add another, if lions roar louder still." Catelyn answered with steady voice. "We come with honor, my lord, and wish only for vows to bind your house and mine." Walder's gaze skittered up and down her. "Vows bind until knives sever, but perhaps Tully steel proves stronger than Stark." He licked thin lips. "Your son draws near, yes? I should dislike carving feast without the young wolf gnawing bones at table. He rides from Old Stones tomorrow," she said. Walder's eyebrow crawled. Old Stones, a ruin, wolves like dens of bones. His cackle drew echo from chamber pillars. Catelyn felt chill settle deeper. She excused herself on pretext of travel weariness and sought her assigned chambers on the east side of the bridge. Guards outside wore fray blue and gray. Their eyes slithered away when she stared. Behind doors she found maids setting fresh linens. She ordered them to leave, barred the door, sank onto a bench. Fear clawed. She could not name its shape, but smelt its breath. Instinct told her to flee, yet there was nowhere to run. Robb marched behind, her father's lands ahead lay ravaged, the twins the only route cross river. She pressed knuckles to lips until blood welled. "Pray, old gods, pray, new gods, spare my son." That same sunrise filtered through reed curtains far away where Jon Snow rose from rushmat bed. In the low communal hall of Greywater Watch, crannogmen knelt around a shallow stone pool reflecting wavering sky. They hummed a wordless chant. Their voices rose and fell like wind across swamp. Howland stepped beside Jon carrying a bundle of painted reeds. "The gift of the bogs," he whispered, handing it over. Inside rested lengths of polished ironwood carved into whistles and tubes. "Blow them when you reach Moat Cailin. The neck will answer. Our eyes will follow your steps like herons stalking fry." "Men know." Jon secured the bundle. "I thank you. May that watch turn treachery aside." Howland offered slim dagger. "Dragon glass. Found under Hill of Night, long before even my grandsires. Should foes rise colder than honor, this bites deep." Jon accepted with solemn nod. "Then I ride." He crossed Rope Bridge to where a shaggy Garen waited, Ghost already trotting ahead. Reed scouts guided him through mist-choked mire, along islands of firm turf no outsider could divine. By midday he reached firmer ground, spurred west toward western shore of the Bight. Ravens circled overhead, black dots against sky scraped clean of cloud. By nightfall, he camped beneath an ancient sentinel tree whose bark flaked like rusted mail. He built small fires shielded by fallen logs, fed Ghost salted fish, and wrote a letter by flickerlight. "Robb, the reeds have joined. I ride now to White Harbor in disguise, thence by ship to Gulltown to seek Lady Barbary and the Manderley fleet. Keep your crown hidden, sharpen your sword, and if the twins smell of carrion, trust the wind and turn aside. We are more useful alive than martyred. J." He sealed it with a clot of candle wax imprinted by Whisperfang's hilt. In the morning he bound it to a raven's leg, whispered, "Find soldier's heart, and cast it skyward." The bird vanished into pale east. Hours later, that raven alighted on a mast of Manderley cod drifting up the Trident carrying supplies for the twins' feast. But the sailor who discovered the message, illiterate, stuffed it into his coat for later, and forgot it while gambling dice in a hold stinking of onions. Fate took other courses. Evening settled purple over Old Stones when riders from Robb's host thundered into the crumbling courtyard bearing banners of direwolf and trout. Sir Brynden Tully led them, his black cloak swirling, his one good eye gleaming. He dismounted before Robb, who waited upon shallow steps. "Your Grace, Lord Bolton's men reached the twins ahead of schedule. They claimed to reinforce the bridge's defense. Robb's gut twisted. Reinforce against whom? We are their allies. The Blackfish tightened saddle straps. Yet I smell sour wine beneath that cork. Bolton's message was unsigned, only his flayed man device. Bane? Robb's hand went to hilt of Whisperfang beneath cloak. Is my mother safe? She entered the hall at midday under Frey escort. Reports vary whether she remains there. Robb drew deep breath. Then we depart now. Brynden set a hand on his arm. We need more men. Men we have, Robb said. What we lack is time. He assembled 50 from his vanguard. Mormont spears, Glover archers, Manderley knights. Others would follow at dawn, but this spearpoint rode hard. Under waning moon they spurred across fields patched with snow, hooves drumming dirge for unseen dead. Grey wind ran ahead, long legs swallowing furlongs. At a crossroads an hour shy of the twins, a lone rider blocked their path. Tall, hooded, mounted on piebald mare. Robb signaled halt. Dawn's first blush bled along horizon. The stranger raised gloved hand, voice muffled. Ride no farther, Wolf King. Swords rasped free among Robb's guard. The stranger threw back hood to reveal a woman's face. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair streaked gray, eyes like wet iron. She wore breastplate dented by old blows, a longsword strapped across slender back. Mage Mormont muttered, Lady Stoneheart. But Robb recognized her from half-remembered childhood visits to Seagard. Lady Barbary Dustin, widow of Dustin Lord, lost at the Trident. She bowed from saddle. Stark's blood once warmed my hall, she said. Eddard Stark left my lord to die on foreign field, yet his son rides into pit no less cruel. I cannot stomach another widowhood. Robb edged forward. Speak plain, my lady. What doom lies ahead? Doom woven by Frey and Bolton. She tossed object toward him. It thudded in snow. A severed hand, fingers tattooed with flayed man. I took this from a hunter stalking your camp. He bore message instructing Frey turnpikes to bar all routes north after feast. A hush. Snowflakes drifted into torch sputter. Robb stared at the grisly proof. Why bring this to me? Barbary's gaze flicked to the chest strapped behind his saddle, the old king's crown peeking from cloak folds. Because north must remain north. Wolves do not bow to flayed men nor to craven crossing lords. My bones may hate Eddard, but they love the north more than vengeance. Turn now. Circle west. Cross at Seagard's ferries my men hold. Bam? Robb's thoughts raced. Bolton treachery seemed likely, yet abandoning Edmure to Frey hands would fracture alliance, doom the Riverlands. Catelyn's safety hung unknown. He looked to Brynden. The Blackfish's nod was slow. Seagard lacks bridges stout enough for full host, Brynden warned. And Lannister raiders stalk those roads. Lannisters I can fight, Robb replied. Knives at feast are deadlier. He clenched reins, felt pulse in cut palm. Joan's warning rang anew. Trust the wind and turn aside. The wind now carried smell of blood from east, faint but sure. Robb raised his voice so all could hear. Wheel west. We ride for Seagard. Some men murmured. Others cheered. All obeyed. Lady Barbary spurred ahead to guide them by hidden trails skirting Freylands. Grey wind howled, a long ululating cry that rolled over frozen fields and echoed off distant towers where Frey guards shifted uneasily atop battlements. In the twins' drafty hall, Walder Frey paused mid-sip of spiced wine, brows knitting. What fancy, he muttered, wolves howling at dawn. He signaled for fiddlers to strike tune again. And they did, wood and gut trembling under skilled hands. But the notes turned sour when crossbow strings twanged out of sync and quarrels rattled in grooves. Walder frowned. Night was not yet done. Edmure Tully stood before a polished bronze mirror in a guest chamber, lit by sputtering tallow. His wedding doublet shimmered sea green with silver trout. His cheeks glowed with nervous warmth. Two Frey squires fussed over cloak clasps. smoothing every embroidered ripple. Suddenly, the door burst inward and Catelyn rushed in, hair disordered, eyes wide. "Edmure, come, now." He blinked. "Sister? I am to proceed to sept for vows as soon as horns." She seized his arm. "The horns have yet to sound. We go to the stables. My son is not yet arrived, and I fear—" "Robb will come," he protested. Walder assured. "I assure you the Freys are liars," Catelyn hissed. "Every corridor reeks of crossbows and closed shutters. If I am wrong, I will beg forgiveness. But if I am right—" Footsteps thundered outside. A Frey guard appeared, spear leveled. "My Lord Tully, your presence." Catelyn's dagger flashed. Small and sharp, she slashed the guard's thigh, drove knee into his gut, yanked Edmure past him. The squire squealed. The older Frey reached for horn to raise shout, but Catelyn hurled candlestick square at his face. Blood-spattered wall. Edmure gaped. "Move," she commanded, dragging him into servant stair. Down they fled, racing past kitchens where scullions chopped carrots for stew. Oblivious. Out a side door onto snowy courtyard smelling of horse dung. Stable hands looked up startled as Lady Stark barreled through. She found 2 geldings saddled for messenger duty. In heartbeats, they were mounted. A horn sounded then, not the wedding call but alarm. Shouts cascaded across walls. Steel clanged. Catelyn kicked heels. Horse leapt into gallop down muddy lane. Edmure followed, cloak billowing like trout-colored sail. Crossbow bolt clacked against stone arch as they barreled through postern gate, just before portcullis hurtled down behind them. Outside, cold wind slapped Catelyn's cheeks alive. Tears blurred her sight. She dared not glance back. Each hoofbeat might be last. They raced north toward pine copse, where she remembered abandoned woodcutter's hut. If gods had mercy, they could hide there and wait for her son. Behind them the twins rang like iron, horns braying, dogs barking, men screaming orders. Marriage had turned to melee before vows spoken. And still, the fiddlers played. Robb's detour west took him through farmland dusted with snow like mold on bread. Villages lay shuttered. At one ford they found burnt wagons, charred corpses, Riverlanders slain by Frey outriders to keep path clear. Each mile deepened Robb's conviction he steered from a snare, yet each also widened guilt for kin left inside. In mid-afternoon they reached Green Barrow, where an abandoned sept stood roofless, its sunglass shattered. Their Lady Barbari's outriders delivered news. Lord Bolton's main column had not marched to Twins as claimed, but camped instead half-day east, blocking King's Road. Bolton banners flew at half-staff in mock of mourning for whom none could say. Yet rumor whispered Bolton blades carried dogs' names, and dogs scent blood long before men. Robb gathered commanders under leafless tree. Frey Bridge closed, Bolton Road sealed. We strike north through bog, make for Seagard ferries. Once across, we muster rivermen, and drive on Moat Cailin before Bolton chairs a northern seat. Galbart Glover frowned. Moat Cailin is held by Ironborn still. Not for long, Robb promised. The Crannog men will open secret ways. Our banners fly wolf-head side by side with reeds and bears. We smash the flayed man between. Ser Vendel tundered laughter. Good to warm my fat with Ironborn skulls afore winter. They broke fast marching order, fanning into long serpent column winding over low hills. Barbary scouts flitted ahead. Mormont axes guarded rear. Gray wind roved side to side, nose skimming air for spoor of pursuit. Snow had ceased. Sky beckoned blue cracks through cloud. At sunset they topped a ridge and saw far to east the twins lit like twin lanterns floating above steel-gray river. Faint orange glow pulsed inside walls. Torchlight or fire? Brynden frowned. No celebration lanterns burned so fierce. Robb aimed spyglass. Shapes writhed across battlements. Men hauling something heavy. A brief flare as if pyre ignited. Distant wind carried cries, but not words. God. He could do nothing. To turn now risked trap. He lowered glass, jaw clenched. We ride faster. Behind him Meg's big shadow loomed. Your grace saved wolves tonight, she said low. No shame in grieving those you could not. Robb did not answer. He saw again Joan's letter in flame-lit snow. We have father's honor and mother's dream between us. Some dreams cost more than kingship. Some honors demanded blood. He carried both now like stones in breastplate. Inside the twins, chaos reigned unbridled. Walder Frey's plan had unraveled when crossbow cords snapped in cold, sending bolts wild. Outraged Manderley minstrels drew hidden daggers, slaughtering nearest Freys before being cut down. One of Bolton's captains demanded delay for prayer, sparking shoving match that toppled wine vat into fireplace, setting rushes ablaze. Amid confusion, Catelyn Stark vanished with Edmure. The Blackfish's scouts rammed Western Gate, freeing dozen Tully bowmen who formed rearguard for their lady's flight. Bolton men sealed inner courtyards, turning ambush against Rhaegar captains who questioned orders. By dawn, scarcely one plan matched its architect's cruel sketch. Roose Bolton found Lord Walder shaking by charred hearth. Too many moving parts, Bolton murmured almost kindly. Even leeches bloat, if left to gorge uncontrolled. Walder screeched that Bolton's men had killed his own. Roose merely smiled. Peace. Our aims align yet. The young wolf may slip your crossing, but cannot outpace mine. Vengeance will keep. Nemhan. He slid on his gloves speckled with Frey blood, turned away, and summoned swift riders to track Lady Stark. His bastardy son Ramsay waited in Dreadfort kennels with Pact, eager for long chase. Near dusk of the following day, Catelyn and Edmure reached the woodcutter's hut. The structure leaned like drunkard, holes gaping in roof. Inside they found straw bedding stiff with frost, old smoke stains on stone hearth. Catelyn collapsed against wall, limbs trembling. Edmure fetched water from iced stream, built feeble fire. We cannot stay long, Catelyn whispered. If Robb comes, we ride for Seagard. Edmure squeezed her hand. Robb is clever. He will hear whispers, find us. Catelyn wished she shared his faith. She torched dried grass to keep embers alive, sent fervent prayer to the seven and old gods alike. In the stillness, wolf or wind, hope and dread warred in her chest. Jon Snow reached White Harbor's southern docks under guise of merchant's guard, cloak hooting his face. The city stank of fish and brine, but within its thick walls Manderley banners still flew, unsullied by Bolton flare. Jon entered through Rivergate disguised, carrying reed bundle and dragonglass dagger. He found Lord Wyman Manderley in a solar above Newcastle's kitchens, sampling spiced crab. The Lord's girth had grown since last Jon saw him, flesh sagging in chin folds, but his eyes were keen. Another northerner seeking refuge, Wyman mused when Jon presented letter bearing Ned Stark's seal. White Harbor welcomes wolves, though my hall grows crowded. Jon bowed. I come not for food but for ships. Ships I possess, Wyman said, but sails need purpose. The Freys choke the trident, the Boltons bleed my king. Why should I loose white sails into crimson tide? Men? Jon unrolled sheepskin. Because the North needs truth, and truth needs heralds. He told Wyman every word father's letter held, every vow sworn in towers, every step Jon now walked with Robb. Wyman listened in silence, his mouth working round crab meat. When Jon finished, the fat lord dabbed lips with lace kerchief. The dragon returns, he murmured. And with him, maybe hope for my murdered son. His eyes glistened suddenly. Yes, ships you shall have. Quiet as mist, swift as spring thaw. We sail you to Gulltown under false colors, with parchments naming you Kyra Longshaw's steward. Once there, you may ride Vale Passes or slip south along Sisterton. But beware. Lannister gold glitters across every ward's board. Jon inclined head. I will tread with care. Wyman leaned closer. One favor, bring me Frey hearts for stew when next we sup. Jon almost smiled. I will deliver them salted. They clasped hands. One strong, one soft with fat but iron underlay. Alliance forged, Jon retired to cloister to rest. Ghost patrolled parapet, red eyes scanning Wintersea. On a wind-swept hill north of Seagard, Robb Stark stood bareheaded beneath weeping sky as first flakes of new storm began to fall. Below stretched salt marsh, shimmering pewter, seagulls wheeling. His men erected tents, but Robb remained statue still until Galbart brought word from scouts. Catelyn and Edmure sighted hiding near cracked obelisk southwest. Bolton riders closing from east. Robb's heart slammed. How many? 200, led by Black Walder and the bastard of Bolton. Robb's eyes flashed. Fetch every spear that can ride within minute. We strike now. Brynden advised caution. Terrain favored archers from ridges. Cavalry might mire and bog. But Robb would not leave mother to Bolton flayers. He donned Torrhen's helm for first time, its black steel swallowing his face, silver runes catching fire of setting sun. When men saw their king thus crowned, their cheers rose like thunder. They thundered down slope, gray wind racing ahead, air filled with salt tang and snow taste. Crossing tide flats, they splashed through icy pools, hooves kicking sheets of water. Ahead, smoke rose where Bolton riders torched huts to flush fugitives. Robb signaled arrow volley, Manderley bowstrings sang. Shafts streaked, taking 2 riders from saddles. Shock rippled ranks, Bolton trumpeter blared. Robb crashed among them, Whisperfang flashing black flame. Gray wind leapt at throat of man in Frey blue, dragged him screaming. Mormont axes hacked through shield wall. Galbart unhorsed Black Walder with mace stroke, but Walder rolled sprinted toward thicket. Robb spied Ramsay Bolton girding Hera-like steed, mouth twisted in mad grin. He spurred toward the bastard. Ramsay loosed quarrel from short crossbow. It skittered off Robb's shoulder plate. Robb hewed down with Valyrian dagger. Ramsay parried steel ringing, but Whisperfang's bite severed crossbow string then slashed cheek. Ramsay reeled. Before Robb could finish him, a Bolton pikeman thrust. Robb sidestepped, but steed stumbled in mud, throwing him. Ramsay scrambled to horse, fled with 2 survivors. Gray wind pursued, but Robb whistled recall. They had mother to find. Catelyn emerged from hut doorway as snow began in earnest, Edmure at her side. Robb ran, lifted her into arms. She clutched him, sobbing into wolf helm, hands smearing soot across polished runework. Edmure pressed fist to chest, eyes shining. Robb, thank gods, Catelyn breathed. I feared you dead. Not this day. He kissed her brow. But twins run red. We must fly. They rode west to Seagard gates, where Lord Patrick Mallister welcomed them, stumbling with fatigue. Pekshek's silvery hair whipped in gale. My lord king, tides rising fast. Ferries sail now or not till next moon. And no. Robb looked east to where river lightning flickered behind black storm mass. He saw veiled shapes creeping. No, illusions of weary eyes. We sail, he declared. Load horses, wounded, all. As ferries lurched into white-capped estuary. Snow fell thicker, wind howled funeral dirge. From deck Robb scanned coast until twins vanished behind sheet of flurry. He wondered how many died there by treachery, and how he would answer their ghosts. Catelyn joined him at rail. My son, what crown sits on your head? I scarcely knew you when you rode out. Danurm? He removed Torrhen's helm. An old crown for new oaths. Too soon to wear in daylight, perhaps. Catelyn traced the silver runes. Your father taught me crowns cut deeper than swords, yet sometimes realm needs both. Robb slipped helm under arm. I have a brother's letter you must read, he told her then, quiet words swallowed by roar of sea. About Jon Lyanna, Rhaegar, the blood pact sealed at Queenscrown. Catelyn's face drained, then something lightning bright sparked in eyes once dulled by grief. He is my Ned's son in all that matters, she whispered at last. And now our hope. Robb exhaled, tension easing. They stood side by side under driving snow, ferries pitching toward far shore, storms massing. Somewhere across angry waters Jon raced toward Vale. Behind them Frey bastards licked wounds. Before them Moat Caelin's grimstones waited. Night swallowed sun. But fire glimmered in twin hearts. Wolf and dragon fused, beating time against coming dark. 5 nights later, in White Harbor's outer roadstead, 3 whisper ships slipped anchor and ghosted out past Milkglass Cape under canvas dyed gray-green to blend with sea. On the lead deck, Jon Snow watched dwindling lights of Manderley Lighthouse. Ghost stood beside him, fur silvered by half-moon. The captain sidled up, voice hush. "Storm sign ahead, sir. Batten tight." Jon nodded, gaze fixed on black horizon. Storm, he welcomed. Storm would hide them from eyes that pried. And storms, he thought, are but tempests in which dragons hatch. He squeezed reed bundle, feeling burden lighten strangely. Within each hollow reed, a message. The north remembers, the dragon stirs, the wolf howls. Those reeds would seed whispers across vale, across narrow sea, across hearts starved for justice. When whispers grew to roar, perhaps crowns of ice and crowns of fire would melt into something new. "Ready canvas," Jon ordered softly. "We sail for Gulltown, and beyond." The prow knifed waves. Snow turned to sleet, pelting deck like shards. Ghost raised muzzle. Howl swallowed by wind, and beneath the storm Jon heard answer. Wolves somewhere far, answering call across leagues, as though pack thread bound them still. One down. A quarter moon glittered on the mirrorish glass charm at Jon Snow's neck, a makeshift keepsake that Lord Wyman's maester had pressed into his palm just before the sea wolf slipped harbor. A dragon coiled about a dire wolf, etched in copper wire. It warmed oddly against his chest now, despite the gale that hammered the narrow-hulled whisper ship. Spray slapped his cheeks raw, the sharp brine tasting of steel and lightning. Above, the late-night sky was a tattered sail, clouds shredding eastward before a nor'easter that smelled of sleet and hidden thunder. They made nearly 8 knots under reefed canvas, remarkable speed for a vessel scarcely twice the breadth of a river barge. The captain, a taciturn Pentoshi named Darrow, handled tiller and sheet with the easy grace of a cat burglar. His 3 deckhands were ghost-quiet men whose mother tongue Jon could not place. They seemed at home where wind howled loudest, flitting about in bare feet, knives tucked in sashes, dyed the same storm gray as their sails. Jon leaned at the rail beside Ghost. The great white direwolf maintained a low crouch, claws braced against the lurching deck, nose tasting the salt wind for threats. When lightning flickered, the red eyes glinted like coals, and in their reflection Jon fancied he glimpsed visions. Torn banners, a snow-choked tower, a woman crowned with frost. He dragged his cloak tighter. Across the surging ink of the Bight rode 2 other whisper ships, their lanterns hooded, masts swaying like black reeds. One carried Reeve Howland's messengers, the other 24 Crannog spearmen bound to slip ashore north of Crackclaw Point and seed rumors through fen villages. Darrow claimed they would reach the Vale in half the time a lumbering galley required, provided they survived the winter squalls. "Wind turns," Darrow murmured at Jon's shoulder, grip tightening on the tiller. By rights, the man ought to have been below, but he navigated by stars and scent, and neither could be trusted to deckhands. "Reef more topsail. Storm veers so east soon, bad water near Sisterton. We skirt west and slip beneath them." Jon squinted at the horizon. A faint orange smear glowed through the high clouds. Distant lightning, or a returning lantern? He opened his fist around the dragon-glass dagger, black blade swallowing what light remained. "Pirates." Darrow shook his shaved head. "Nay. Vulture kings from Pike. Ironborn prowl on homeward wind after plundering Gulltown grain. They like slender hulls. They gut 'em easy. Steal secrets." The Pentoshi spat. "But they fear storms worse than ghosts. We outrun on lee side if we hug the wind's teeth." A gust smote the sail so hard, the mast shuddered. Ropes shrieked in protest. Sea hissed across the bow. Jon braced beside the wheel, trading a glance with Ghost. "Do it." Darrow bared gold-capped teeth. "Hope your wolf swims." The night became a hammering white blur. Spray sheeted over them, crystalline needles seaming Jon's cheeks. The deck canted. Barrels rolled. A deckhand cursed when a wave tore the hood from his lantern, exposing a brief bloom of yellow that vanished as suddenly as it sprang to life. Darrow shouted foreign commands. Hands scrambled, hauling lines, nimbly cleating and belaying even as thunder cracked overhead. For a moment, Jon tasted fear. Cold and metallic. It was not death that quickened his pulse but failure. The thought of letters never delivered, of a pact choking in seawater before it could sprout. He pictured Robb's face haloed by sleet in the ferry's prow, the black iron crown hidden beneath his cloak. Somewhere far inland those ferries plied their own storm, carrying a family's last hopes through tides of treachery. Lightning split the sky, bathing the world in a ghost-pale flash. Out on the port bow something took shape. Low, dark, triangular sails angling across the storm front, prow adorned with a weeping kraken in tarnished bronze. The warship was twice Darrow's length, but wallowed side-on to the wind, mainsail furled awkwardly as crew fought to keep her upright. The Pentoshi laughed, an animal sound. "Good. She can't tack quick." He yanked the tiller hard, sending the whisper ship slicing across the oncoming swell. The hull vibrated like a drawn bowstring. Green water washed the deck to Jon's knees. Ghost howled above the tempest, defiant. Ironborn voices carried, faint yet savage, a hoarse bellow for grapnels. Javelins whickered through the dark, their tips sparking against the narrow rail. One embedded itself inches from Jon's boot. He snapped it off, hurling the shaft back into the night. His fingers found the bundle of reed whistles at his belt, but he could not risk a note. The wind would devour it. Instead he loosed Whisperfang, the Valyrian steel seeming to drink the moonlight. Darrow's crew unfurled a ragged scrap of sail cut from dyed linen, a decoy patch stitched to confuse pursuers, and hurled it into the sea. It snagged around a floating spar and ballooned, catching luminescence as it drifted off port. The Ironborn turned toward the phantom sail, believing the smaller vessel had capsized. Meanwhile, Darrow swung beneath their blind side, passing so close Jon glimpsed graybeards beneath iron caps, eyes wide with surprise. Darrow's harpooner, a wiry man with serpent tattoos, flung a clay pot that shattered on the Ironborn deck, spewing whale oil and pitch. The gust caught the oil, spattering masts, and lightning chose that instant to lash downward. A white glare consumed the raider's quarterdeck, followed by a thunderclap that shook Jon's teeth. Flames blossomed up the ratlines like climbing roses of orange and blue. Shouts turned to screams. Darrow whooped. Storm's gift. He brought the tiller amidships. Run for the Vale mouth. The whisper ship skated the crest of a rolling breaker, outrunning both wind and flame. Rain hammered ashore like stone shot, dousing any sparks that leapt the rail. Jon exhaled. Ghost pawed water from his muzzle, then shook himself like a dog waking from a dream. 2 hours later, dawn broke into meek pastel, the storm's fury spent. The three whisper ships emerged from a fog bank into calmer swells. The Ironborn vessel was only a smudge of smoke on the horizon. Darrow passed Jon a mug of hot lemon water. "First trial done. Rejoice you bring luck." Jon watched pale sunrise paint a silent sea. "Luck is a blade that cuts both ways. Then hold it by the hilt, my friend." Pentoshi clapped his shoulder and retreated below. Jon lingered, letting the lemon sting revive him. His mind walked other shores. Black twins aflame in far riverlands, Seagard ferries rocking through sleet, Bolton knives bared in winter darkness. He vowed he would not arrive too late to blunt them. Something inside him, a fusion of Rhaegar's buried fire and Ned Stark's austere honor, simmered. When it broke the surface, it would carve new courses for every river in Westeros. Across those rivers, Robb Stark's small army trod ankle-deep bog as dawn peeled open like a dying hearth coal. They had marched through half the night to outpace Bolton outriders, pressing north from the coast toward Moat Caelin's bramble of green-black ruins. The ferries had landed them near the estuary mouth, and Lord Patrick's mariners guided them over a labyrinth of oyster shoals and sodden causeways, always one slip shy of drowning. The young wolf strode at the column's fore, feet caked in gray sludge, Torrhen's helm strapped to his back beneath a plain wool cowl. He had divested himself of royal pageantry. Crown stones lay cushioned in a leather sack, riding in the supply cart. Beside him walked Grey Wind, his coat no longer clean white, but streaked with peat. Behind, Mormont shields glimmered with frost. Glover archers kept fingers on waxed strings. Catelyn rode a shaggy Garin amidst Brynden Tully's outriders. She had slept nary an hour since the fiery flight, each time jerking awake to phantom bolt whistlings. Yet each time she saw Robb's silhouette against twisting bracken, her pulse steadied. She had lost Bran, Rickon, Sansa, maybe Arya. She would not yield her eldest while breath filled her lungs. They reached a low ridge of moss-covered stones, the breakwater of ages, where once the children of the forest raised cairns to half-remembered gods. Beyond, the King's Road re-emerged from swamp-on-broken flagstones, leading through Moat Caelin's shattered gate towers. Ironborn banners still hung there, black kraken on sea-green field, drooping in damp wind. No horns blew, no sentries shouted. Galbart Glover shaded his eyes. Either the Greyjoys sleep late, or they have slithered off. No Greyjoy slithers, Mage Mormont grunted. They lash. If towers hush, they bait trap. Robb tested the air. Wood smoke tinged it faintly, but wind gusts shredded any clues. We risk arrow rain crossing flats. But if Moat Cailin stays barred, we lose fastest path north. He signaled forward scouts. 6 Crannogmen newly joined beneath Barbry's pledge. Skins painted green and brown like reeds. They slid ahead on bare feet, disappearing under low marsh mist. Catelyn dismounted, pacing to Robb's side. Could Theon still command within? Stannis took Deepwood Motte, and the Ironborn hold on the mainland must be fraying. Robb's expression closed. The memory of Theon's betrayal still ached like an old scar. He gave a curt shake. If Theon lives, he is crow-caged on pike or dead in Bolton's dungeon. Whoever commands here now we treat with caution. He raised his voice for the line. Form ranks 2. Shields high. No torches. They started down the spongy path, the hush so absolute that shoe squelches echoed like war drums. The mist thickened, swallowing rear segments until each man felt alone, except for the wet slap of his heartbeat against ribs. Black barrels jutted from collapsed parapets, rusty scorpions or only shattered timber. Nobody dared guess. Halfway across the flats, a shrill whistle pierced the murk. One of the Crannogmen's reed signals. Galbart froze. Meg's mace rose. Then came another whistle from the west rampart, repeating thrice. Catelyn whispered, "Parley." Robb lifted a hand. The host stilled. From the gate tower's dark maw emerged a scattering of silhouettes. Ragged men in skirts of mail, axes dangling. The first waved a filthy white scrap. Robb stepped forward, Grey Wind low at heel. A hoarse voice hailed them. "We yield," it croaked. "Fly to sea. Leave us die." As they drew nearer, the men's condition shocked even Mage. Wounds suppurated beneath crusted bandages, eyes hollow, cheeks sunken. The Ironman had suffered fever and autumn flux that rotted lungs faster than salt air could scour infection. Only 24 remained from what once had been 300. Their captain, a one-eyed thrall named Skagdrick Saltbeard, sank to knees before Robb. "The bog ghosts cut our water," he rasped. "Cut our throats if we venture out. Food's bones and boot leather. Heal us or kill us, makes no matter." He coughed blood that spattered muck at Robb's boots. Crannogmen melted from the haze. Howland's finest, spears leveled. One, a slim woman with face tattooed in frog-green swirls, touched finger to brow at Robb. "Our work finished, Wolf King. Their walls ours now." Robb surveyed the moated ruin. He had bled hard at Whispering Wood, Oxcross, Ashmark, yet never had he seen an enemy undone by silence alone. It humbled him, reminded him of Jon's letter. Not all victories are hammered on anvil of swords. He addressed the captain. You will swear oaths before God's wood and witness. See to all claim to north, return by long ships under flag of mercy. Any who refuses will find graves here. Skagdrick struggled to nod. Done da. By salt and stone. Memshawar. Maester Varley, fetched from the supply cart, set about cauterizing wounds with boiled wine, while Manderley men hauled salted cod from barrels to feed the emaciated foe. Robb accepted their short swords and axes, handing them to Mage. Melt down, recast into nails, he said. Ships need keels more than corpses need markers. That night, Robb's camp sprawled within Moat Caelin's ancient baileys. Fires burned in half-collapsed towers, reflecting off pools where frogs chirruped. The Ironborn slept under watch. Cranagmen padded barefoot along battlements, vanishing whenever a sentry's head turned. Robb sat with Catelyn on a fallen column. Between them stood a bowl of broth, steam swirling like ghosts escaping cracks. So many die, so many more yet, he murmured. Each step north feels smaller than the graves behind. Catelyn's hand brushed his. Graves feed new trees, my son. Do not mistake soil for rot alone. She paused. I saw your blade today, Valerian. When did you claim it? He explained how Jon gifted Whisperfang, the pledge they had shared. Catelyn listened gravely, mouth tight, then surprised him by pressing kiss to his scarred palm. I misjudged that boy, she whispered. I will not misjudge the man. We must find a smith of hearts who can mend what I marred. Robb felt a stone shift from his chest. He leaned against his mother, staring at the night sky stitched with frost stars. When Jon comes south, everything changes. The realm will know Father's truth. But first we survive Bolton. Bolton bleeds already, a voice said behind them. Meg Mormont approached, wiping gore from vambrace. Scouts report Roose withdrew to the King's Road, heading for Harrenhal. Word of Frey fiasco spreads like pox. Lannister outriders ride at his shoulder, yet not close enough to share campfires. She grinned. All Barefang. Wolves hunt best when prey limps. Robb stood. We move at dawn. Send ravens to Carhold, Bear Island, House Reed. Tell them gates open. The king returns. Banners to muster at Winterfell come new moon. Galbart coughed. Winterfell? She's but a shell. Stone can be rebuilt, Robb said. A crown's worth measured in hearth fires, not thrones. He gazed north where dark pine forest framed a sliver of the dawn rising. I go home. Roose Bolton rode beneath leafless oaks painted red with autumn wash, snow hissing among branches. The Leech Lord's face betrayed no ire, but his pale eyes burned. Atop the ridge behind him snaked columns of men. 500 Frey spears now sworn to Bolton coin, 200 Dreadfort shields, and a ragged cabal of sellswords, led by a Lorathi pariah. Far fewer than the army he had envisioned, yet enough to exact retribution, and deliver his own head to a Tywin Lannister grown impatient with bungled coups. Beside him ambled Sir Aenys Frey, cheeks still blotched from smoke backdraft. My Lord Walder demands the wolf's head. House honor demands. Bolton's gloved hand silenced him. House Frey's honor drowned in its own moat. We focus now on salvage. He flicked blood-flecked snow from sleeve. Tywin's lions will pay starkly for each misstep. I will bring them the north flayed open, but timing must be precise. Robb heads home, to Winterfell they say. Let him rebuild ruins. Let him gather muling lords under false security. Then we strike with keys none suspect. And what of your bastard? Aenys dared. Reports say he lost half a face to the Stark Prince. Half a face is more than he deserves, Roose murmured. Fear not. Ramsay always finds amusement in suffering. He spurred his horse, ending conversation. Privately, Roose wondered which flowed stronger. Stark resolve or this new rumor of dragon blood stirring. Ned Stark's secrets had thrived like leeches in warm dark. Leechcraft had taught Bolton that sometimes the host died only when Leech was peeled away. If Targaryen proof surfaced, old alliances would sunder. Rue's flayed man might feast on chaos, or shrivel if dragons kindled hearts. Either way, blades must be honed. Far south, in the sun-drenched clutter of a Braavosi counting house, a gaunt man in red leather unstoppered an ink jar, and listened as a courier recounted whispers. Twins burning, Wolf King vanished, Bolton turning coat. When the boy departed with a copper, the gaunt man drew quill and began a fresh letter in elegant glyphs few in Westeros could decipher. To her who would be storm, sea, and sun, it began. Know that the north cracks open, and winter winds may carry more than snows. If you would claim the dawn, aim your ships west before the leaves are all spent. He sprinkled julep dust across wet ink, folded the parchment into a narrow packet, and sealed it with a sigil. A seahorse span into a comet tail. A dancer of shadows would carry it east, to a queen of dragons restless in Meereen. The man smiled thinly, imagining the chaos such knowledge could conjure. Westeros had slumbered too long. Jon Snow's whisper fleet anchored under guise of fishing craft, beside the chalk cliffs south of Gulltown. Dawn painted the sky a tender rose, gulls shrieking overhead. The Vale's port smelled of oyster brine and pine tar. Its harbor bristled with masts, most flying Arryn falcon or Gulltown's red gull banner, but some bore crowned stag within fiery heart, the sigil of Stannis Baratheon, now staking claims along the narrow sea, since Dragonstone had become a hive of troubles after the wildfire disaster. Jon disembarked wearing a rough-spun cloak, sword wrapped in burlap, ... Ghost padded behind, earning wary looks from dockhands. Darrow's crew melted into city crowds. They would rendezvous at dusk beyond the south gate. Jon made for a nondescript inn whose signboard showed a silver moon in a blue field. The Crescent Sailor, a haunt for smugglers and hedge knights. Inside, smoke and ham grease perfumed the air. A minstrel picked at a lute near hearth. Jon hired a corner table, seating himself where he could see the door. Ghost settled at his boots, head resting on paws. Presently, a burly man in woolen surcoat strode over, his cloak pinned with bronze-wrought runes, an Arryn-sworn shield. "You are the northerner seeking Lord Jon?" he asked. "I am," Jon said. The knight studied him. "Your token?" Jon produced a feather of bronze, forged into dragon wolf sigil. The knight's brows rose, but he nodded. "Stone sentinel sees." He gestured. "Follow, dirty." They wound through corridors to a private solar overlooking the harbor. There waited bronze-armored Lord Jon Royce, broad-shouldered, silver hair plaited in warrior's tail. On a settle at his right perched a slim maid cloaked in brown homespun. Though her hood shadowed face, Jon recognized the tilt of chin, the quiet fire in hazel eyes. Sansa. Heart hammered. She laid a finger to lips. Silence. Royce spoke first. "Snow of the Night's Watch, they called you when last we met. Yet you wear no black." "I wear oaths older than black," Jon replied. Royce motioned him closer. "Your raven's words stirred old stones. My liege boy, Lord Robert, is frail. His mother's knights close round him like steel vines. But there are forces in the Vale yet loyal to blood of the first men. Tell us what you see." Jon unrolled Ned Stark's letter. He spoke of Lyanna, Rhaegar, the Tower of Joy, Robb's escape from Frey treachery, Bolton's ascendancy, and the Pact forged. Sansa listened, eyes welling, hand trembling in her lap. When Jon finished, Royce released a long breath. "Long have I mistrusted Lannister chains," he said. "If there is proof the boy on Iron Throne is but a golden lion cub wearing stag's hide, and now Frey knives turn on guests, the Vale cannot stand idle." He turned to Sansa. "Lady, the choice falls on you. Reveal yourself as Stark to rally swords, or remain the little dove pettiers men think you are." Sansa drew back her hood. Her red gold hair spilled, bright as sunrise on snow. She met Jon's gaze squarely. "I have hidden and bled while fools played kings." Her voice shook but steadied. "I will be Lady of Winterfell, or I will be nothing. but I will not be a shadow bride. Jon's throat tightened. You are my sister. He reached across table. Her hand closed around his, warmth spreading. Royce thumped gauntlet on breast. Then the bronze guard stands with wolf dragon pact. We muster at Runestone, march north come fortnight. Jon nodded gratitude. We sail tomorrow for White Harbor. Ships await to bear you swift. He glanced at Sansa. If you dare the sea. She smiled faintly. Wolves dare storms. Outside the solar window, gulls wheel cried over rolling surf. Jon felt the world pivot, two threads once frayed drawing taut. Robb at Moat Cailin, Sansa in Gulltown, both braced to tug the realm's tapestry into a pattern the Lannisters had never foreseen. Winterfell's charred towers rose black against pewter sky, a broken crown of stone bitten by fire. Snow whirled in crooked courtyards where weeds thrust through ash. In the Godswood the great weirwood stood scarred, its carved red eyes weeping sap like congealed blood. Yet life flickered. Armored men labored with timber beams, hoisting new walkways across gaps. Atop the battlements flew a white field bearing gray direwolf. Below it a crude dragon-wolf pennon fluttered smaller, but unmistakable. Robb Stark arrived before dawn's first light. He dismounted in the courtyard, still reeking faintly of char and spruce tar. The sight of shattered doors and collapsed kitchens twisted his gut, but the tang of home swamped sorrow. Gray wind padded ahead, sniffing ancient stones with cautious joy. Sir Wyman Manderley met him beneath the half-repaired barbican, cheeks flushed apple red from cold. Your Grace, I feared the fairy storms drowned you. Behind him thronged men of White Harbor, Bear Island, Carhold, Barrowton. 30 banners flapping like wings amid rising snow. Robb clasped the fat lord's arms. Thank you, he murmured. We have far to go, but each stone set right here reminds our people we yet stand. He turned to face the ranks. As he reached under his cloak for Torrhen's crown, a horn sounded from outer gate. Riders thundered in, readout riders flanking a slim courier cloaked in skulking gray. She dismounted before Robb, produced a sealed scroll. He broke wax. Jon's neat script. Brother. I have Sansa. Jon Royce marches with us. Stannis whispers of alliance. I sail north with 200 bronze knights. Keep Winterfell breathing. We come swift. Robb's heart thumped. He lifted the crown, felt its iron bite. Catelyn watched, tears shining. He raised voice. Lords of the North. House Stark reclaimed its den, but wolves are pack, and pack lacks without kin. Soon rides Lady Sansa. Soon sails my brother Jon, Aegon, blood of dragon and wolf alike. Together we bind ice with fire, north with realm. Let us build hearths that need no fray roofing, roads where no Bolton flare may tread. Winter falls, but hearts rise. Then see. A roar answered, a living tide of shouts, shield stamps. Sword pounds. Snowflakes whirled upward as though the very storm acclaimed him. He placed Torrhen's crown upon his brow. Its weight felt earned now, not borrowed. From a half-toppled tower vantage, a pair of ravens observed. One wore silver band on leg, marked with studded S. The other's band bore crimson lion. They took wing opposite directions, one north, one south. The game's next turn had begun. That night in King's Landing, Grand Maester Pycelle tottered into the Tower of the Hand with a letter trembling in palsied grasp. He found Lord Tywin Lannister seated at a writing desk, candle glow lacquered on gilded armor displayed in alcoves. Sir Kevan consulted map at his elbow. Pycelle wheezed. Bad tidings, my lord. Whispers from the Riverlands confirmed the Northern King escaped the crossing, now holds Moat Cailin, retaken Winterfell. Worse, they speak of Targaryen heir allied to him. The bastard Snow. Da. Tywin's quill froze. A single brow rose. A dead usurper's son resurrected as dragon? Folklore. Yet something cold flickered behind his green-gold eyes. Kevan lifted a fresh raven scroll. Field reports of bronze Jan Royce gathering knights. The Vale may stir Toando. Tywin exhaled through nose. Send ravens to Duskendale, Rosby, Stokeworth. We seal the capital. Recall Joffrey's fleet from the Blackwater. If Vale swords threaten supply lines, we starve them first. He reached for Signet. Ace for Bolton. Sir Kevin cleared throat. Roose requests more gold to maintain Sellswords. Tywin's smile was thin as paper. Tell him to deliver the wolf's head, or he need pay no Sellswords again. He dipped quill, and began drafting cold commands. But his heart, were he honest, felt strained for the first time since the Trident. Outside bells tolled 9th hour, echoing like foreboding across rookeries. In the Red Keep's Godswood, a lone white raven shifted on branch, feathers ruffling against night chill. In the candlelit library of Castle Black, old Maester Aemon stirred over a scroll. Dolorous Ed entered, bearing soup. "Snow writes again, Maester. Says he partners kings." Aemon's blind eyes shone. "The world changes too swiftly for old bones. Yet I feel her, my niece's blood, alive again." He smiled, frail but fierce. "Perhaps I may yet see spring after all." He folded hands and recited softly. "When the fire meets the frost, and the wolf claims the sky, the song woken in shadows shall never truly die." Outside, the wall groaned as glaciers shifted. Far beyond, among the dead woods, other things stirred, but that is a tale for ice deeper still. Gulltown's docks bustled under midday sun when Jon reboarded Darrow's whisper ship, with Sansa and a retinue of Royce bronze shields. They sailed under flags of Gulltown merchants, but the holds packed fresh sharpened lances and barded destriers. As sails caught wind, trumpets on the breakwater pealed farewell. Hopeful notes, not martial. Jon watched city shrink. Sansa leaned at the rail near him, pale hair ruffling. "Do you think Arya lives?" she asked suddenly. He placed hand on hers. "I have to." After heartbeat he added, "The Pact survives." "Father said that." She dabbed stray tear. "And Mother? You saw her?" "In Moat Cailin soon," he promised, though uncertainty nagged. "We'll all meet at Winterfell hearth." The Whisper fleet arrowed northward on a favorable breeze. Their destination: White Harbor, then the roaring rivers, then the King's Road's shattered stones. Ahead lay feuds of banners and dragons yet unsung. Jon inhaled salt air, tasting iron of coming war and sweetness of reclaimed family. Far astern, waves closed over their wake. Ahead, the horizon gleamed, a knife edge between ice and fire, night and dawn. He felt the blade of fate steady in his grip and whispered to the wind. For the realm, for the Pact, for honor, and for the promise Father died to shelter. Ghost lifted his muzzle and howled, long and low. Other throats answered, faint across widening distance. Gray wind beneath broken towers, wild wolves roaming winter forests, and perhaps, echoing highest of all, the dragons no man had yet beheld over Westeros. And so the song carried forward on wings unseen, toward a confluence where snowflakes met embers. Crown met crown, and a pact once sealed in secret would ignite a realm too long bowed beneath the lion's roar.